All right, we're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast. And today we went through business planning for 2025. It was actually a really good episode, a roadmap for mortgage brokers to business plan for the upcoming year. Jason and Derek joined me, and we dove into all the key components that you're going to want to focus on for your business plan. Some really good actionable tips that will help you going forward, and forecast our upcoming training session with the Better Way Mortgage Group team. Business Planning 101 on December 17th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's a Tuesday. So a really good episode. We'll pass it off to the team and get into it. Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by a Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with a Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. All right, we're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast. And today, this is a really important episode. It's business planning for 2025. It's something that we've taken very seriously in our careers. Been a huge piece of our success is to take the time every year and business plan for the following year. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through our approach to business planning. We're going to highlight some of the significant components of our business plan. We're going to share a template that we use every year and all of our agents use as well. Also, just forecasting our annual business planning meeting that we do as a team with all of our agents, December 17th. That's a Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So definitely check that out if you're an agent with a Better Way. It's a big one, and it's one that you don't want to miss. So let's jump right into it. Derek, maybe I'll pass it off to you. Just why business planning matters for mortgage brokers.
Yeah, I mean, business planning has become a ritual, I guess you could say, and I think it's a ritual in most people's businesses if you've been consistent with it. And I think that's the one, if you do business planning one time a year as an example, it's the one time a year where you actually remove yourself from the business and you look at it from the outside and you look at your challenges and where you want to go with the business over the next 3, 6, 12 months, and kind of plan accordingly. So I think that's an extremely important piece, especially as brokers when you're busy. You're so stuck in the business, it's hard to see from the outside of maybe you're lacking on marketing or maybe your financials are a mess or what have you. But it's an extremely important piece, regardless of what business you're in. But especially as mortgage brokers, I mean, there's constant change in our industry. There's constant change in regulation. If you look at the last couple of years that we've been through in the Canadian market, we've run into challenges that I think no one really anticipated. We've seen major loss of commission based on different terms being offered. We've seen massive volume shifts because of interest rates. So, I think identifying challenges is a huge piece. Again, some of the points that I'd mentioned there, but new OSFI regulations, stress test updates, making sure that you're getting ahead of all that, changing the client expectations as the world progresses into a virtual, we're not doing a lot of client in-person meetings anymore as most mortgage brokers are operating. How are you getting ahead of that? How are you staying ahead of that? And how are you making sure that you're compliant in doing that? Moving on to just economics of our country, of your local market, what does that look like? And what type of business are you going to tap into based on the expectations for the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, we've definitely seen like such a shift over the last 5 years to, things being far more digital, especially when it comes to the technology that we have available to us, whether it's a CRM, a client application, a document portal, just your submission platform. There's been a heavy change to, let's say, velocity, just given like AML, FinTrack type requirements. If all of these types of things have been popping up in our business plan for many years now, and I think if you're not quite there when it comes to those types of components, those are big pieces that you definitely want to look at. Yeah, Jason, anything to add on that side of things?
Yeah, I think Derek hit the nail on the head. It's stepping away from the business to look at, how did you produce last year? Did you meet your goals? What do you have to make changes? Like, what does a business plan do? And like, what are we looking to accomplish from a business plan? And really, I think what it is just to have a guide in front of you that shows you, like, are you staying focused on your revenue goals? Are you hitting the metrics that you have set out? Is the goal to build stronger relationships with your lenders or with your clients? So you can really peel back and identify certain gaps that you may have had the year before and fine tune those as you move through. through. So I think just having that full on plan that allows you to step back, but also have a guide that you could revert back to and look at to make sure you're trending in the right direction is very important as you go.
Yeah, well said. And like I think that's a key piece that doesn't get brought up enough is like the fact that you actually have to review this on an ongoing basis. Like it's one thing to put it all together and put the plan out there. I mean, that's a huge first step that a lot of folks don't do, and that's just starting and putting it on paper is number one. But having the time to go back, review it, making sure you're on track, that should be done, I would say, quarterly at the bare minimum. But for some folks, I mean, they look at this business plan every day. I know for a fact that there's individuals that actually have their business plan in a summary version that they literally do look at every day and stay on track with their goals and what they're trying to achieve. So why don't we just jump right in? I'll start off with just some of the key components of a mortgage broker business plan, and we can kind of just chop this up. So first and foremost, like, what is the vision? What are the goals? Define your long-term vision for 2025 and beyond. Like this, the business plan is definitely, it is for the upcoming year, but there always should be a component of what is the long-term goal, and not everything is going to be achieved in a year, and that's okay. Like so really defining your long-term vision is very important, and it starts there. This kind of goes into just what we were talking about in regards to reviewing, like the importance of setting a SMART goal, and to break that down, that's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals. That is so key, because like this does have to be. You don't want to create a goal that's like unachievable, because then you're going to feel like you failed, right? So you definitely, but you want it to be big enough that you got motivation to go after it. So outside of that, like anything to add on that front?
Well, there's that old analogy where it's you're standing at the bottom of a stairwell and you're looking at the very top, and the very top is your macro goal. But what you have to focus on is each individual step that you have to take up in order to hitting that target. And that's why, if you look at a broker that says, hey, my goal is 50 million in volume this year. Well, that's great. But what's all the steps that you're going to take on a daily basis in order to hit that 50 million? And sometimes I think where people fall short on their business plan is they have the macro, but they don't identify what they need to do to hit those. So I think that's why it's very important to clearly identify. And then if you could take those small steps on a daily basis, you're actually feeling like you're accomplishing and you're moving and making forward headway. And that gives you that added motivation to keep going until you hit the top.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And just to go a little bit deeper on that, this is what we talked about last year, and we'll talk about it again this year in our business planning session. But if you have a goal of $50 million in funded volume, or some people just do a commission revenue goal, working that backwards to say, okay, well, like, what's my average mortgage amount? That's a huge piece. So if your average mortgage amount's $500,000, how many mortgages is that? Once you know how many mortgages you have to fund in a calendar year, how many leads do you have to get? So I think starting a business plan and understanding your numbers, like doing a business plan without having proper reporting stats, how many leads did you get? How many converted to applications? How many went to an approval? And how many funded? If you have the stats and you can work it all backwards, you can actually say, okay, to hit 50 million and 100 deals, I have to make 20 calls, or I have to do X amount of meetings in a month to create X amount of leads, right? Like it's all lead to app to fund. Like those are numbers that you have to know. And then you just know, okay, like on a monthly basis, if I got my 45 leads this month, based on a 35% funding ratio, if that's how your business operates, you're in line with what you want to do. And if you, again, like I think to Dean's point, constantly revisiting your business plan, and it's so easy not to do that because it's like you just get back into the business, you're not outside of the business, looking at every single month saying, did I hit my target this month for leads? And if so, what was I doing? Did I exceed it? If so, what do I think, like, why do I think that happened? Maybe I forgot to do my database email, or maybe I let up on realtors because I was so busy, and like a monthly reminder of the actions that you need to do, to Jason's point. But you got to go granular, or it just doesn't work.
All right. So carrying on, and again, just breaking this down into key components of the plan, and that will, it always comes down to what we just talked about. We're talking about numbers, 50 million target. What does that mean, right? And let's break down the numbers, the financial projections, estimating revenue targets and expenses. Like, so you say you want to hit 50 million, but what does that mean from a dollarization perspective? We all know compensation is a lot less in the last, say, 24 months, given, shorter terms. maybe rate buy downs because we're competing with banks a lot more than we maybe have in the past. So like estimating revenue targets and expenses, let's understand what is it actually going to take to, fulfill these goals. And again, that might, mean carrying on through some of these components, and that's okay. You don't have to do this in order, like marketing strategies, events, all these other things, attending professional events. These are all things we're going to touch on today. But understanding the expenses will then help you, forecast what type of revenue target you need to do.
And it's funny, I mean, the whole industry is so focused on volume, but like at the end of the day, I'm sure there's not that many people that are doing this for fun. You're probably doing it to make money. And don't get me wrong, it's cool to track volume. It definitely means something, but understanding your revenue, like that's the money that you're taking home, and that's the money that you have to work with within your business for whether it be hiring staff or building out marketing programs, whatever. So I think that probably the most important thing as you work into a business plan is looking at the last 12 months. If you're incorporated and you have a bookkeeper or accountant, which I would hope you would, you should be getting a detailed profit and loss statement either monthly or at the end of the year, which will show you every single bucket of where your money went inside of the business, and breaking that down to say, you know what, like, do you know how many people have all these different tech accounts that they don't even use half of them? Like, start to look at the easy stuff that you can clean up. But at the end of the day, you got to look forward. So look at what you did last year and try to figure out what you can change, what you can cut essentially to get your business a little bit more nimble, if you want to call it that. And then projecting for next year, like, what are your goals? If you want to do more volume, does that mean more staff? And if it means more staff, like, what does that do to your bottom line? And I think this is where some people need to look at that and go, do I just want to make more money? And if so, I'm just going to work harder myself. Or do you want to be able to take a step back so you can do more marketing to grow? But there's going to be a cost, and you're probably going to take a hit on that for a little while. So again, like, just understanding your financials hands down is the most important part of this. I think there's just far too many people that really don't have a clue what's going on, and you spend money here and there, and at the end of the year your accountant sends you a statement and you sign off. Like, go through that. It'd probably take you 2 hours to look at every single cost, figure out what you want to cut, make sure it's all categorized properly. That's a huge piece as well. And then I think just going forward, like, the theme of this is business planning, because people want to grow, they want to get better, they want to do more business, or they want to become more efficient. So if you go back to the beginning of this and kind of having a vision of where you want your business to go, working it all backwards. Like, if I want to go from 50 to 100 million, like, most people are probably going to need some staff in there, right? Whether it be an underwriter or an associate. So figuring out the cost of that, looking to hire. But at the end of the day, you also got to look at this projection and say, like, on a conservative level, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're just hoping and praying that the market's going to turn around and you brought on 3 staff and now all of a sudden you're not making money, right? So you got to make sure that if you are getting yourself out of the business, you're focusing on marketing initiatives that are going to drive more business back in. But again, I think that there's just a lot of looseness, you could say, in most industries when it comes to financials and understanding your numbers. I mean, tax is another piece, right? You'd probably be shocked to know how many mortgage brokers, realtors, commission salespeople spend the money before it even comes in, and year end comes around and you get a $100,000 tax bill and you don't have it, right? It's very, very common in our industry, especially the last couple of years, just with the market taking a bit of a hit, and there's been a lot of cost cutting. I mean, any brokers that had a team and were doing a lot of business through 2020, 2021, every single person would have experienced the same thing. Quickly, volumes, cut back by 25 to 35%. Quickly, commissions cut back by 25% from going from 5-year terms to 2 and 3-year terms. So that was a huge eye opener for anyone that was running a team, a brokerage, anything in our industry, really, if you had costs. So that I'm sure most people over the course of the last 2 years have found a way to cut costs, and they're probably paying a lot more attention to it now, which is a good thing. Yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to touch on there. I think just understanding your costs and planning forward is important.
Yeah, I think just digging into like cutting costs, like that's definitely something that you should certainly look at. And I mean, those tech accounts do climb. Believe it or not, like it's amazing how many people realize even just going through their personal finances with their family when it comes to cutting costs. Like, this comes up quite a bit. Like, people realize they're paying for 2 Netflix accounts, like because their wife signed up for one and they signed up for one. Like, again, like that's a a bad but a good example. And when you're working with a detailed accountant or bookkeeper, it will help you be consistent to stay on track when it comes to costs and looking at cutting costs. But investing in growth is key as well. And as we get into the marketing strategy, which we're going to touch on now, that might come with a cost, and that's okay, because that's investing in growth. And again, understanding what that growth is going to look like is obviously important, from adding cost to staff and whatever it's going to take to fulfill that. So why don't we jump right in? Like, a marketing strategy. What is your marketing strategy? Because that's a plan in its own.
Yeah, I mean, once you have your costs figured out and how much you have to allocate towards growth of your business or whatever you want to put that cost into, let's develop a marketing strategy, right? What are we doing to develop a client acquisition plan? Are you looking to put money towards social media ads, SEOs, or referral programs? So really identifying where you want to place that money and where you feel like you're going to get the best return from. How are you leveraging your partnerships with your realtors, your lenders, community groups? Are you allocating costs towards lunches? Like, what is the best way you feel, or holes that you may have identified where you potentially are missing referral sources and other avenues of business that you didn't see the prior year? And then, of course, it's tracking the ROI on efforts. I mean, we can always throw cost out there and think that the realtor lunches are bringing us tons of business, but we need to track where we're spending our dollars and if that spend is actually worth it on the return side. I think a lot of people think that they're working because they're out busy having lunches and networking, but I don't want to go for lunch with my realtor 5 times and flip a $150 bill if he or she's not sending me any business. So I think tracking and really identifying who is working with you is going to open up a lot of a lot of certainty in where that money is being allocated.
Yeah, I mean, you have to value your time, and like ROI is also like your time involved. And you made a good point, just like, the amount of time you're even just spending with realtors, or like you mentioned, coffee or dinners or what have you with a realtor. Well, like, what about just the fact that you're calling on certain realtors regularly, and maybe there is nothing coming from them? Like, maybe stop calling those folks. Like, maybe that's not a good use of your time. Maybe there's a different group, or there's different people you need to target, because the ones that are currently in your network are just not doing it enough. And even more so, if if you are giving them more than just your time and your money, but you're maybe sending them referrals and you're not seeing a reciprocal relationship, like, that is something that needs to be analyzed, addressed, and look for something else there, because that's obviously not working. So again, back to the point of reviewing this, like, if this is your first time doing a business plan, you need to go back on your stats and understand what has been working, what hasn't been working, especially when it comes to any sort of dollar spent on marketing, ads, or just time and money in regards to partnerships and realtors, lenders, or financial advisors, you name it.
And tying into all this, I mean, love the people that love you, right? Like, if you look at your top 15 or top 10 and those people are constantly referring you, constantly supporting you, like, don't forget about those people. And you're calling all these other people to try to get business from them. Call the people that are supporting you, send them gifts, take them for lunch. Like, those people are actively working with you. They like you. That this was brought up in our business planning session last year. It's like, love the people that love you and don't forget about them. This is probably a whole podcast on its own, but just from a marketing perspective, like, it's funny, everyone's like, it's easy, just make calls, just do this, send emails, whatever. Like, what are you calling about? And we've been talking about this, amongst ourselves recently. And from a marketing perspective, like, you got to start with the content. Like, if you're going to do an ad, what is your content? Like, what are you creating? So if you're going to start a marketing program, start there. Like, figure out call scripting, figure out email templates, figure out your value add in like a marketing flyer. If you're going to do a podcast or you're going to do monthly emails, like, get all your content together, and then it's how are you delivering it and to who, and then what's your follow-up process after that. So again, this is going down a bit of a rabbit hole on marketing, but actually having a process to marketing too, instead of just like throwing money here and throwing money there. To Jason's point, what's the point in lunch if you're not going to deliver a message and have a request for that person?
Yeah, I mean, like, to call this section or this component of the business plan a marketing strategy, it's really a marketing and sales plan. It is really what should be carved out of this, and it really should be its own dedicated time and resource to build out on its own that will complement your business plan, because it is such an important piece. Like, I mean, the business will always die. Any business will die without a marketing plan. Without marketing in general, it's going to die. And sales and especially when it comes to partnerships and who's sending you business, it's just so important that you put a very high level of attention on that. So let's move on. The next component of the business plan would be operational efficiency. Again, you could probably title this a number of ways, but one thing to consider, again, we probably sound like a broken record this year because we've talked about it in so many episodes, even our Behind the Broker series, this comes up a lot, but a CRM. Tools like Zoho, Blue Mortgage, for a streamlined client management system. It just, to me, if you don't have that, that should be the first thing in big bold writing on this business plan is to implement that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about the numbers over the next, 2-3 years. The amount of renewal business that's coming to the Canadian mortgage space, it's record setting. We've just never seen it. It's a perfect storm of 5-year fixed rates coming up for renewals. It's another storm of 3-year fixed rates coming up for renewals. So this is by far the biggest opportunity in the Canadian mortgage history for us to capitalize on our database and people that we've done good jobs for in the past. So without having CRMs and without having any of that stuff in place, that is a huge misfire. And that's the first thing that I'd be doing if I were setting a business plan for 2025.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, if you don't have a CRM, that means you can't communicate with your clients in a mass format. Like you can't send newsletters. You don't have proper tracking of anything like Jason mentioned, whether it be annual reviews, like reasons to call your clients. At the same time, with the amount of regulation that continues to come into our industry, you don't have a CRM for tracking purposes on every single one of your deals. Huge flaw, huge risk. Again, scream this from the rooftops, but if you don't have a CRM, like I wouldn't even do the business plan, just get a CRM first and then do the business plan, because that's like you're missing out on so much. And then inside of the CRM, I'm not a tech person, but it's pretty cool what these CRMs can do. And to give you an example on our own personal CRM that we created years and years and years ago, there are 13 milestones, which we talked about in the Perfect Loan Process series. But these milestones are essentially an application comes in and an automated email goes to the client and the realtor saying, thank you for the application. Here's what's next. There's a video, there's a checklist, 13 of those throughout the entire process of the file, which are automated. So rather than, a realtor or a client calling you, hey, how did the appraisal come in? Like, what was the value? It's like, as soon as it comes in, an automated email goes out. You click a couple buttons, but just create efficiency in your business. Use the tech that's available to you. And again, like that, we implemented that back when we were extremely busy, and it was because we literally didn't have the time to get back to people efficiently. So it gave everyone general updates throughout the entire life of the file, and you would be shocked at how well it worked and how quickly it turned off these constant requests for updates. So that's just one example of what tech can do for your business.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like there's no excuse to not have this, especially nowadays. Like this is such a base level requirement of technology in your business. To not have it, it's quite pathetic, to be honest. Like, to be perfectly honest with you, like you need to have this to survive. Like you won't survive in this industry going forward without this, especially given like all the other technology that's coming out with AI. It's actually, it can be overwhelming, but like if you just simplify it and implement this CRM, again, like we have free solutions when it comes to velocity. As an example, there's a CRM component built into that. It's not going to be the greatest CRM out there. There's no, like, nobody's going to say that, but it's a hell of a lot better than having nothing, and it's free. And then when you really want to expand on that, you look at the Blue Mortgage options. There's so many different CRMs now that are out there that are very, very strong, that all do kind of similar same thing when it comes to workflows that Derek mentioned, that are keeping your clients up to date, automated tasks to make sure you're reminded to go back to those clients for certain situations, whether it's, following up on a subject removal or following up on an anniversary call. Especially when you come into these situations where you're competing with a bank on a rate. The one thing, like if you have a proper dialed efficient system like a CRM, like we're talking about, you can actually market to your clients that I am going to be your broker for life. I actually am going to follow up with you diligently and make sure there's an opportunity to save you money on your mortgage. Like we're going in towards a downward rate world, barring some major, changes in our market, but we should be seeing rates go down over the next 24 months. How are you going to be effective? How are you effectively going to call your client and offer, specific opportunities to drop their rate or break their mortgage if you're not diligently tracking them? You might miss that opportunity. You might call too early. If you really want to market a client for life and really take care of your client ongoing, you have to have these systems in place, and they really are the base level to what we're talking about. The last thing I wanted to touch on just around operational efficiency is really considering like outsourcing or automating non-core tasks. And that could be a number of things. Like the CRM is going to help from an automation perspective, but if you're growing and maybe you don't have a team yet, like there are solutions that, whether it's within our brokerage or outside or looking at outsourcing companies that are maybe offshores when it comes to, just regular administrative tasks, maybe client calling tasks such as a director of WOW type responsibilities, which we've talked on the podcast this year. But looking at outsourcing, internally we have options where we have brokers on our team that are willing to help brokers with their compliance, payroll, and all administrative tasks to wrap up a file towards the end of a transaction, or a full service underwriting support team that can help you with all of the administrative underwriting, deal placement side of things, or document fulfillment. Ensuring that your clients are being followed up with and documents are being processed. These are all things that you can outsource, opposed to just hiring a staff member. Or again, maybe it just requires you to hire a staff member to do these things for you. These are very important items to look at and cost out and look at a pro forma to make sure that it's the right investment. And there's ways to offset that, whether it's looking at these one-off solutions like underwriting support or compliance and payroll support. So just on the operational efficiency, I think we covered a lot there, but anything I missed?
I think just pick one. If you don't have a CRM, pick one, simplify it, master it, use it. That would be top of mind for me if I didn't have one, is just to pick it and run with it, because it's definitely a need that we have to have.
I think you make a good point, a little bit off topic, but you can't build a business plan with like 30 new initiatives that you're going to do. It's just impossible. Like pick the core ones that are going to have an impact. It's probably marketing related or like cost cutting related or CRM related. Like you want to pick some reasonable activities that you can action right away with a reasonable cost. Again, you could build a business plan with 50 different things and you're just not going to get to them, and you're not even going to know where to start.
All right. So the last component we always want to touch on is just professional development. This is, you are the business, especially as a mortgage broker. Most of us are just independent brokers without even any staff. So, and even if you do, like, professional development is such an important piece of our business, and attending industry events, conferences, and training, like, for me, that has really made an impact on my career. For a lot of the industry events, you have to be picky with your time and what you're going to attend, especially the cost of some of these conferences can be quite up there. We just wrapped up MPC in Montreal, not a cheap trip. Sorry, but again, there's a lot of good value out of these events. So with that, like, Jason, anything to add? I know you've been around for a long time in the industry. You've been to a lot of these events. Like, how important are those to the success of a mortgage broker?
I actually, I really like this topic of professional development. I think they're extremely important to a broker, whether you're brand new coming in or you're, just kind of getting your feet wet, or you're a seasoned veteran. I think there's multiple things that you can take from these. Networking with peers is a huge one. Getting to know other professionals within the industry that you work in. I found, and we talk about this on other podcasts, is brokers, especially the good ones, they're very open to share what they do, their best practices. And I know we touch on that in a lot of our episodes, but from a networking perspective, I think they're massively important. You could go and you get so much information thrown at you in these events. I think if you go there with the mindset of taking one bullet piece out of every event that you go to, if you take one piece that you could bring out and implement into your business, that's a huge win. So no shortage of things that go on. I think to Dean, to your point, pick and choose which one you want to go to. We talk about our costs and all of that earlier in the episode, but is spending $1,500 going to an MPC conference workable in your business plan? If it is, great. If it's not, then go to a regional one that sometimes they're free and sometimes it's a small ticket. So, I think they're very important from multiple different levels. And if I were a new broker or, really at any point in my career, I'd make an effort to go to a few per year.
Yeah, like, I totally agree. And cost is a big piece. So I don't want to shine over that, especially, coming off some challenging years. Within our brokerage, we do a good job at hosting our own events, and we actually make them free for our brokers. And, we've had some negative feedback on the fact that they are free and they're versus like the cost and having something to encourage people to actually take it seriously. We take the stance that we want to keep our events free and encourage our brokers to come. But it's amazing, like, we'll probably average anywhere from 60 to 100 people attending our events, and there's a lot more than that in our brokerage. And what is the common theme? It's always the same people showing up to these events, and they're typically the people in the top 50 of our brokerage. And so what does that show you? Like, even as busy as they are, they make a time to come to these events. And so again, if you can't afford the events, make sure you're going to your brokerage events, especially if you're in a Better Way broker. We're doing these events regularly. There is such good educational value in it. Networking with your peers, networking with the top 50, like, how could you not want to be surrounded yourself with people that are better than you in this industry? You're only going to get better if you continue to surround yourself with some of the most elite people in the industry, let alone our brokerage. So I strongly believe in those. We'll continue to make sure that there's an ample amount of events with educational components to all of them. And one piece I wanted to touch on, just when it comes to personal development, and this is where we can wrap, is learning new tools and software to improve your client services. We talked about CRMs, we talked about tech, we talked about AI that's coming. We've talked about this a lot in a lot of our episodes this year. This is a great place to go learn about these types of things. When you think about, some of the bigger conferences, whether it's the provincial conference or the national conference, what is always showing up in these trade shows? Tech companies, solutions, whether it's, like even just the new and like some of these new legal services and how they're taking tech and making, just adding improvements to their client experience, which is ultimately going to benefit you and your client experience. So this is where you learn this stuff. And if you can't afford these events, make sure you're going to your brokerage events. Okay, so we're going to wrap up the episode here. We just touched on the key components of the business plan, and I'll just summarize. The vision and the goals is where it starts. Financial projections. We talked about marketing strategy, which is really a marketing sales plan, operational efficiency, and professional development. So that really makes up the guts of the plan. That is what we will go through in our training session on the 17th. We'll really dive deep into that plan and help guide our team towards making really good decisions when going through that guide. So moving on past that, let's talk about maybe some actionable tips for starting your 2025 business plan. And this is where we'll look to kind of wrap up the show here. So Derek, why don't you take that away?
The first one is blocking off time to actually complete your business planning. We've always suggested doing at least a half day, like 4 hours, to sit there and kind of get your mind focused and in the business. And going into that meeting as well, have your stats ready, right? Like, you don't want to go into a business planning meeting and then you're trying to figure out stats from Velocity, Filogix, whatever it is. Like, have your stats, have your numbers, go in there and figure out your plan. So just get it in the calendar. We always do weekends because there's nothing else really coming at you to bother you. Biggest piece, get it in there now. I would always recommend doing it as soon as possible, because you actually, after you complete that first business planning session, you might actually need a follow up, whether this is on your own or with an accountability. Keep in mind, if you're a single broker doing your own thing, you can do this with someone else that's in the same business, same line of work, right? I'm sure that would go a long way. I've already touched on this, but gathering the necessary data, right? Without the data, you're kind of building a blind plan, which it's not going to go very far. So how many applications did you get? Where did the leads come from? What sources do you want to go after? Now, actually having the business planning template, which all the Better Way brokers would have access to already, which we're going to refine and update for this year, for December 17th session. But having a template where you can actually jot everything down, and then you want to get it on virtual as well, so that you have a working Google type document that you can follow up on, make edits, track as you need to, and then setting your first follow-up, right? So you do your business planning, say in the next week or two, 3 weeks, which is great. Everyone's going to go through holiday season and come into January and hopefully be excited and active and ready to go. I would be setting your first follow-up for February 1st. So you're 1 month into the year. How did you make out? How are your leads? Where are they coming from? Are you actually hitting the actions that you said that you were going to hit? So again, monthly meetings going forward. But again, the key one is you just have to get this meeting. Like, you have to do this. You have to get it in the calendar, get it all started, and go from there.
Yeah, time blocking is so important. And like you mentioned, a half day, like that's very key too, because like I've read so many books on this piece of like this is just goes back to task management, time blocking for tasks and your daily activities, like getting your head geared into like getting into the mode of business planning and starting to think about these things. It takes like 30 minutes for your for you really to get warm and then start to really get into it. So to try and block this off in like say half an hour increments and do, multiple sessions, I find you're far more efficient if you just bang it off in 4 hours and then revisit it later. I think that's such a key component. You mentioned a really good piece of like doing this with a buddy. That's a great idea. Even more so, like think of a realtor. Like if you have a really good relationship with a realtor or some other planner in your business, it's a key component of your business. Think about doing this with them. Like whoever it is, like it makes a big impact, especially given that large percentage of our business is just independent mortgage brokers, and it can be quite lonely, and this is a great activity to do together. So that's a really good piece. And like you said, we are going to share the template. I want to just preface like this: we've been business planning for more than a month now. This is something we revisit quite earlier on towards the end of the year, and it's not something that maybe it's necessarily the smartest thing to do right at the end of the year or in the following first couple months of the year. Get on this right away. Like don't hesitate. Like yes, we're doing a session on the 17th, but don't wait to start then. Like start now and come to that meeting, like you mentioned, prepared. And if you already have a whack of this done, we can really start to get into the nitty gritty and further tips that could help refine it. So outside of actionable tips, anything you wanted to comment there, Jason?
No, I mean this is business planning season, right? And I would say that if you're just starting now, you might be a little bit late, but there's still time to get it done. I do really like that the buddy system in that, or at least sharing your business plan with somebody else to perhaps get some feedback. We've talked about just goal setting in general. Sometimes when you verbalize your goals, they happen to come to you a little bit quicker. I think if you are reviewing your business plan with other people, and if I go to Dean or Derek and say, hey guys, like I have a business plan where I want to do 50 million this year. Well, if Dean or Derek call me in March and I'm at 0, well, I'm not really achieving I'm not really achieving my plan. So I like the sharing method, and I think putting that out there and reviewing that with other people, I think it holds you accountable, and B, getting constructive feedback from peers is always a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great point. Really good point. The only thing that I would leave off with is, because the market's been so iffy for the last 2 years, going from 2023 into 2024, everyone had this view that 2024 was going to be way better than 2023. And don't get me wrong, it has been for a lot of people, but it definitely didn't start that way. So I would just suggest, if you're rolling into 2025 with that same mindset, don't expect that the market's going to be that much different. Like, don't put all of your eggs in the basket of the market changing. As we've seen in the last few weeks alone, there's a lot of volatility in what's happening with interest rates and just the future landscape of mortgages in a sense. So don't work that into your business plan. Your business plan has to be built on actions and achievable goals, because again, like, we could be dealing with the same market for the rest of our lives here. And you know what, if it does change and it does turn up, then it's just a cherry on top.
Yeah, great point. So just in closing, and we'll recap some of the key pieces of this episode. And again, like, the more and more we go through this stuff, what was like the biggest running theme here is just the importance of business planning. Like that, like, it can't be overstated enough. I think this is something we'll probably revisit it semi-annually from a podcast perspective, and look at what are we doing from a review and revise and adjustment perspective ongoing. So we'll touch on that in future episodes. But that's a big component that we talked about. Again, just constantly looking at this and reviewing it and making sure you're on track. We touched on the key components again: the vision, goals, financial projections, marketing, sales plan, operational efficiency, professional development, just the guts of the plan, and some really good actionable tips that will help. And I can't overstate it enough. Like, the buddy system, I think, honestly, I think it's the best piece to come out of this, because there's one part about building this plan with the buddy and maybe getting a different lens from each other and feeding off of that. But Jason mentioned like the accountability piece, and when you think about looking at this, say every month or every quarter, that those sessions should happen with that same buddy. So again, some really good stuff there. In closing, when we revisit this, we'll look to bring on some guest expert speakers in this matter. We have some business coaches that we worked with for many years that we've talked to about being a part of this and from an ongoing basis. So we'll definitely look at that, and some things to look out for. Just going forward into future episodes, we do have some more Behind the Broker series coming on a regular basis and ongoing into 2025. We have some really cool topics that we're going to be focusing on with lenders and expanding on the Behind the Lender series, and then some really cool stuff just when it comes to like taking your business to the next level, looking at marketing trends, looking at different things that can help your business. So that's always going to be a focus of ours, and even more so going forward. So hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening, and on to the next one. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Lastly, a vital announcement about Backpack Buddies, our chosen charity for 2024. This remarkable organization addresses a hidden hunger issue many are unaware of. In British Columbia, while school districts provide meals during school hours, numerous children face food scarcity at home, particularly during weekends. Backpack Buddy steps in to support these vulnerable children, ensuring they have easy to prepare, familiar food for weekends. This is achieved through collaborations with schools and an extensive distribution network. Your contribution can make a significant difference. With just $20, you can give a child in need a food bag from Backpack Buddies filled with enough meals and snacks to sustain them over the weekend and more. Once again, thank you for listening, and see you on the next one.